The following content is strictly intended for educational and entertainment purposes. It presents a faithful transcript of testimonies from a federal trial of Diddy as reported by inner-city press inside the courtroom where the Diddy case is unfolding. The atmosphere shifts dramatically when an unexpected witness steps in, dressed in a dark suit and discreetly wearing a federal badge. Former FBI investigator Mark Alpering walks to the witness stand, and his arrival brings total silence to the room. The revelations he's about to make go far beyond any celebrity scandal. According to his testimony, we're looking at an organized system, a protection network reaching into the highest spheres of American power. Former President Barack Obama is directly named, once a symbol of hope for millions, now potentially tied to exclusive parties and protection mechanisms surrounding Diddy. According to Alpering, the decades of immunity Diddy enjoyed weren't due to brilliant lawyers, but because of his usefulness to powerful individuals. The case reveals disturbing links between politics, religious institutions, the music industry, and a hidden network of control operating since the 1990s. Despite the packed courtroom, the audience holds its breath. The tension increases as the back doors open to reveal a man in a dark suit holding a briefcase. No formal announcement is made, no introduction. The judge simply nods in approval, signaling the entrance of an extraordinary witness. This is not an ordinary person, but someone who has operated in the shadows with unprecedented access, far beyond what any journalist or private investigator could ever obtain. Identified only as special agent, this federal officer from Han spent decades in the FBI's divisions for organized crime and political corruption. Today, for the first time, he testifies under oath about Diddy. The agent takes a seat, opens his briefcase, and places a thick black file on the stand. He carefully avoids looking at Diddy, who remains expressionless at the defense table, his fists clenched. He doesn't look at the jury either. He simply says, "I have been monitoring Mr. Combs and his business activities for over 20 years. This surveillance isn't new. What's new is that we're finally allowed to speak about it." The judge gestures for him to continue. The agent reveals that the FBI initiated preliminary investigations into Diddy in the late 1990s. The warning signs were constant, he explains. "We observed unexplained financial movements and private events linked to known trafficking networks, international connections tied to front companies. Yet every time they got close, everything suddenly shut down." The agent describes a 2001 case, an international undercover operation on money laundering involving an associate of Bad Boy Records in Europe. The evidence pointed straight to Diddy's financial teams, showing offshore accounts, fraudulent invoices, and shell companies in Luxembourg. But just when it was time to get the search warrants, authorization was denied. "That's when I understood," he says, "we weren't just up against celebrity protection. We were facing federal interference." A ripple of murmurs spreads through the room. "I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist," he continues, "but this wasn't a local police force getting intimidated. The orders were coming from the top. People in Washington told us to back off. Files disappeared. Witnesses were relocated. Investigators reassigned. At first, we thought it was coincidence, but it wasn't." The prosecution then presents a detailed timeline of obstructed investigations spanning from 1999 to 2013. Each time Diddy was tied to criminal activity, either a key witness vanished or a federal delay froze the case. A juror reacts in visible shock. A woman in the gallery gasps and covers her mouth. Then comes a shocking revelation. In 2003, the FBI believed that Mr. Combs was receiving unofficial informant-level protection, the kind that never appears in public records. Only the highest authorities can grant such protection. At that time, only 3 individuals in the federal system had that power. The room freezes. Diddy seems to recognize exactly who those 3 people are. The special agent leans toward the microphone and clears his throat. "This is where the story shifts," he announces, "because we're no longer just talking about the crimes that were committed. We're talking about those who allowed them to continue." This leads directly to Mr. Diddy's relationships with top political figures, including Barack Obama. The courtroom falls into stunned silence. Even the judge slowly lifts his head, his eyes narrowing. The agent opens the black file and shows the jury a series of photographs. The first is a grainy 2005 image of Diddy next to Senator Barack Obama at a fundraiser in Chicago. The next, dated 2007, is from a private, unofficial event in Washington hosted by a powerful lobbying group with deep ties to the Democratic National Committee. Diddy appears under a pseudonym, but the photo leaves no doubt about his identity. He was there, and he wasn't alone. "These weren't just photo ops," the agent explains. "They were, what if the truth wasn't hidden in shadows? but sitting quietly behind sealed courtroom doors all along. During high-level closed-door sessions, the agent revealed something explosive. Mr. Combs wasn't just a celebrity under investigation. He was allegedly involved in intelligence exchanges with campaign operatives. The trade? Information about others, in return for protection. Before the agent could finish his statement, the defense objected, but the prosecution came prepared. Travel logs, email metadata, and more. Then came a moment of thunder. In 2009, shortly after President Obama's inauguration, our office submitted a wiretap request targeting Mr. Combs, the agent said. The goal? To intercept conversations between Combs and known drug traffickers laundering money through bad boy records. The request? Denied. Denied by whom? Asked the prosecutor. The agent flipped to the final page, an official call log linked to a legal office associated with the White House. The name was redacted. The timestamp wasn't. The judge urged the jury to disregard speculation, but it was too late. The silence in the courtroom now felt loaded. How had a man under federal surveillance gained such reach that a White House-level call could shut down a federal wiretap? We're not accusing President Obama of personally protecting Mr. Combs, the agent clarified. But we assert that his administration created a channel, a relationship, that effectively granted him immunity for years. Journalists scrambled. The court stenographer paused. This wasn't luck. It was a blueprint, strategic, sustained, and backed by power few imagined. And this, as the agent warned, was only the beginning. The jury leaned in. Then came the photo. Not grainy, not secret. A high-resolution image from 2014. A private reception at Martha's Vineyard. In the frame, Diddy, Barack Obama, Reverend Al Sharpton. No press, no stage. Just a dimly lit gathering on a billionaire tech mogul's estate. Someone tied to both entertainment and defense contracting. They called it charity dinner, the agent said. But we acquired the guest list through court-approved sources. Many were linked to sealed investigations, former CIA agents, sanctioned arms dealers. The judge slammed the gavel. Whispers erupted. Mr. Combs wasn't there as a guest, the agent continued. He was a conduit, feeding street-level intelligence into marble corridors of power. In return, his transgressions were forgiven. A juror dropped their pen. Then the story darkened. In 2012, a Miami anti-narcotics sting arrested a close Combs associate during an illegal foreign transfer. This case should have been front-page news, the agent said, his voice low. But 48 hours later, the file was sealed. Agents were reassigned, the suspect freed, and it was all gone. When asked how, the agent replied, "A single phone call came from a Capitol Hill extension. That's all we know." He submitted internal memos and agent emails full of confusion and interference. One line stood out. "Don't ask why this was buried. Just be glad you weren't in the room." Then came perhaps the darkest chapter. In 2015, the agent said, "We monitored Mr. Combs' movements, Haiti, Colombia, then private Caribbean islands. At first, we thought it was recreational, but intel from foreign partners suggested otherwise." He described meetings with financiers tied to cartels, yacht parties, and women flown in under the impression they were auditioning for American Idol. When court resumed, the room was no longer curious. It was shaken. This wasn't just a trial of a music mogul. It was a crumbling of illusions, safety, equality, justice. Then came the final shock. "We believe," the agent began, voice heavy, "that a collection of surveillance tapes exists, filmed across multiple Combs properties, dating back to 2003. How did they know? Because some of them briefly passed through federal hands." He pressed a remote. A projector flickered on, revealing a dated still image from a security room inside one of Diddy's Los Angeles estates. This image was leaked by a whistleblower from a now-defunct private security firm hired by Mr. Combs. Over 30 monitors, bedrooms, hallways, pools, many cameras hidden, subjects unknowingly recorded. And here, the agent said, is where it gets far more disturbing. The agent's voice cuts through the silence. "In 2016, we secured a warrant to seize 3 hard drives believed to contain the recordings. But when agents arrived at the designated property, a fire had already broken out in the server room. It was confirmed as arson. Less than 20 minutes had passed since the authorization had been granted. That suggests an internal leak," the agent continued. "Only 1 drive survived, miraculously recovered from a vault in Puerto Rico, owned by a close associate. Its contents? Video footage showing Mr. Combs in intimate settings with celebrities, businessmen, and political figures. many appearing intoxicated, others visibly coerced. Was Barack Obama on those tapes? Asked the prosecutor directly. No, replied the agent. But several close friends, donors, and political allies of the Obama administration were. Mr. Combs referred to them by first name. He knew their secrets. He kept those tapes as leverage. The courtroom froze. Then came the chilling line. In the end, the agent said Diddy wasn't collecting those tapes for vanity. He used them as currency, as protection, in case someone ever tried to take him down. That night, the media reported the revelation. But behind closed doors, the only question that mattered began circulating at the highest levels. What really happened? The next morning, court resumed under heavy security. Federal marshals lined the walls. A new air had settled in the room, the kind that lingers when corruption has metastasized far beyond its origin. The special agent returned to the stand, this time holding a sealed envelope. He requested the judge open it in private. Inside was a classified memo with a header from an agency rarely uttered in courtrooms, the CIA. This document, he stated, has been declassified solely for this trial. It came from the CIA's Domestic Operations Division and was marked high risk. The judge allowed the summary to be read aloud. Starting in the mid-2000s, the agent began, Mr. Combs was identified as a high-value cultural influencer, potentially useful for domestic maneuvering. He was flagged by multiple departments for his ties to known arms dealers, offshore bankers, and intelligence-linked figures in Eastern Europe and West Africa. The agent paused. The CIA didn't formally recruit Mr. Combs, he clarified, but they benefited from his access, his parties, his events, his network, offering rare behavioral data. In return, he was allowed to operate with little to no legal interference. Are you saying the CIA allowed him to commit crimes? The prosecutor asked. I'm saying, the agent replied, they found his actions useful. They may not have sanctioned the crimes, but they certainly ignored them. Then came a deeper revelation. The agent produced a notarized ledger, a document listing wire transfers made through shell companies linked to Combs. Some were routed through TriStar Intertech and entities connected to the Britney Spears conservatorship. The recipients? High-level political consultants and lobbyists. The implication was undeniable. Diddy wasn't acting alone. He was part of a well-funded, tightly managed circuit. Influence peddling, blackmail, information warfare. And just when it felt the courtroom had reached its limit, the agent dropped the final blow. We believe, he said, that one of Mr. Combs' offshore accounts was used to purchase classified intel from a former NSA contractor. That contractor is now deceased. Gasps filled the room. The judge slammed his gavel, demanding order. But even Diddy's attorneys looked shaken, unsure how to respond. Then came one final, stunning detail. Mr. Combs, the agent said, had the president's phone number. A stunned murmur spread through the gallery. In 2014, he continued, after a scandal erupted involving foreign guests and a major music industry event, our team attempted to intercept Mr. Combs' return to the U.S. from St. Barthélemy. A customs alert was issued. His private jet was scheduled for inspection upon landing in Miami. The agent held up a file. This DHS alert was active for 37 minutes. Then, suddenly, canceled. Why? The prosecutor asked. Because someone from President Obama's administration contacted Homeland Security. The call lasted 41 seconds. That's all we know. The number traced back to a secure line used by the White House counsel's office. The alert vanished. The case was dropped. Diddy walked out of the airport untouched. Surveillance footage showed him smiling as he entered a black car. Within 48 hours, he had donated $500,000 to a political action committee closely aligned with Obama's re-election efforts. The coincidence was impossible to ignore. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. The agent inhaled deeply. I'm not here to accuse the former president, he said. I'm here to show that Mr. Combs had access that no one else would ever be granted. And he used it to shield his crimes, to silence victims, to protect an empire. And in that moment, the courtroom realized this wasn't just about Diddy. This was about a system of power, wrapping itself tight around the world. The following content is strictly intended for educational and entertainment purposes. The reported facts come from public testimonies and official judicial sources regarding the federal trial of Shai Daikon. On the 22nd day of Diddy's trial, things took a dramatically explosive turn. Not only because of what happened inside the courtroom, but also due to the chaos that unfolded outside the courthouse steps that morning. Kanye West and his wife Bianca Censori attempted to enter the courtroom to attend the trial. They were blocked by Secret Service agents, denied entry. What seemed like a simple act of support for a friend quickly turned into one of the most shocking moments of the entire legal process. Inside the courtroom, Jane Doe, whose identity remained protected, was testifying about her experiences with Diddy. During her testimony, she mentioned a trip to Las Vegas in January 2024 with a famous rapper and his wife, a rapper she described as an icon, very close to Diddy. The details she gave matched exactly with Kanye West and Bianca Censori's movements during that time. When Secret Service blocked Kanye from entering, Diddy's lawyer leaned in and whispered something to him. Diddy's face fell. He realized that his friend hadn't come to support him, but possibly to defend himself from the allegations that were about to be revealed. This was Jane's 6th day of testimony. 6 exhausting days where she detailed her toxic relationship with Diddy from 2021 to August 2024. She looked drained, holding a box of tissues, unaware of the storm erupting outside due to her words. Prosecutor Maureen Comey was leading the cross-examination. Jane was about to reveal details that would shake Hollywood. She began with a chilling message Diddy sent to a male escort and personal trainer named Paul in June 2023. The message read, "I'm going to need you to persuade her." Jane had never seen that message before. Her voice cracked as she read it aloud. She explained that Diddy had sent it after she messaged him. "I know what you want, baby, but I'm not really in the mood for that part. I don't want to drive you crazy, though." It referred to a planned freak session, sex sessions involving drugs and escorts that Diddy orchestrated and forced her into. Jane then read another message she sent Paul. "I'm not a robot, just a mix of tired, hungry, sleepy, and drained." With tears streaming down her face, she added, "In that room, I felt like..." The courtroom held its breath. Jurors leaned forward, some frantically taking notes, others visibly moved. The prosecution asked, "Did you feel physical pleasure during the acts with those male escorts?" Jane replied in a broken voice, "No, I faked the orgasms to make him feel okay, so he wouldn't feel rejected." She described what she called a love contract, an informal arrangement where Diddy paid her rent $1,000 per month, and legal fees in exchange for compliance in these freak sessions, $10,000 a month, just so she wouldn't complain. Jane broke down when she spoke of her jealousy toward other women Diddy was seeing. Through sobs, she said, "I kept asking why I had to break my own limits and still be treated like this." She had texted Diddy in 2023, "At least say you understand that it wasn't cool to bring me in just for hotel nights, while others had private jets flying them around the world." Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for, the Las Vegas testimony. Jane took a deep breath and began describing the January 2024 trip with the iconic rapper and his wife. She said cautiously, "He was very close to Diddy, an icon. They partied at a strip club and ended up in a hotel room with 7 or 8 people, including an escort named Anton." What followed was explicit. Anton had sex with a woman while the rest watched. Jane admitted she participated. The rapper, who was there with his wife, told Jane he had a crush on her and asked for a referral to another escort for a private freak session with his wife. Every detail Jane gave matched Kanye and Bianca's known movements during that exact time. When asked why the rapper would request such referrals, Jane said, "Maybe they assumed I was in the scene, or they heard it from Diddy or someone else who knew the situation." What drove Diddy mad was finding out about the trip. Jane shared texts he sent. "How could you go to another man's freak session?" He repeated this line over and over, screaming. According to Jane, she said Diddy reacted violently. He ordered her to perform a sexual act on Anton and then forced her to take a pill. "Sean made me do it," she testified, clearly ashamed. Her testimony painted Diddy as not just jealous, but controlling, even after their breakup. Even as she tried to move on, he wanted to punish and humiliate her. During a trial break, chaos erupted outside the courthouse. A furious Kanye West, still blocked by Secret Service, shouted in front of cameras, "I'm here for my brother. I'm here for the truth." Reporters rushed to him. "They don't want me to testify about what I really saw," he said, while Bianca Censori stood silently beside him. When the break ended, the courtroom atmosphere was completely different. Jane had heard about the chaos and immediately realized he was a rapper from Vegas. Her description had been accurate enough for Kanye to feel the need to come defend himself. Back on the witness stand, Jane was visibly shaken, her hands trembling. The prosecution resumed questioning, focusing on physical violence. Jane recounted a June 18, 2024 incident in her Los Angeles home, where Diddy allegedly dragged her by the hair, yelling, "You're trying to make sure I never see my kids again." She grabbed her phone to call a woman she suspected Diddy had brought over. Voyage avec SES en fond Diddy elevate Geifel trace fort non pas avec SES mains maze avec sunbras La Sullivan du sol don unprised d'etranglement LSE take kashi pennant tours maze quan L etate revenue Diddy etate toujours la et avec commence a fair pression sur L port chuo fast veneranton elevate fini par aller le church pour lule se entrée de photos for Montrese en corps represented Cotter ports and demages lu placard la salle de bain la chamber et la chamber. Diemus Defense par Didi, Durant C, Combat Pen and K, Jane, Terminate Sun, Temo Ignich, K-Near, West of 8, Quit La Tribune, Maze of 8, Post, Undeclaration, Explosive Sir, SCS Rezo, Social, Le Message de Sate Simplement, La Verite Clatter, J, Canes, Les Fate, J, Says, C, Ka SS Realement Passe, Set Newt La Vegas, ETC, Ne Pas, C, Chuel Pretend. En quelques minutes, Loop Post of 8 to millions of views. Convene to send element to confirm or Chuel Etate. Lu Rap per Mystier du Temo Ignich. The Jane du tout en contestant save version de vehemence, el avocat de Diddy and immediatement, a nouvelle pause, leur strategy de defense, vine de vote, en éclat, il innovate pas prévuqué, Kanier confirmed publicment son implication tout, en contestant lu temo ignich quan la session, es reapers Jane, du maintain conscient K, Kanier evate publicment contest son, temo ignich etate visiblement plus defensive, el avocate de la defense tenegeros reprise son contraderogatoire, vous avez conduit. Por aller Churcher, Anton vu Orias Pu Pardonan, Demanda Garregos, Wiraponajan Maismon and Font Eti Moi Vivens La Sade Vasil. Blue Point Culmin and Vinquan Deregos Demanda, Vu Donneries Vacher Maison, NSC Palaivu Lapuvis. Jane of 8 Prilament declared Chuel Donnerate Tout Large and Chuel of 8 Reki de Didi side Elbavate Revener, and Arriere Mais Quandos Louis Demanda El Donnerate se Maison El Repondit. E bien mon and Font Eti Moi Vivens La. C. Tate. Un moment relateur comme montrer la complexité de situation el desate chuel, belate tout donner, mais quand il s'agit de essayer réel pratique, avoir un toit pour son, infant el hésité Jane confirma, aussi chuel recevait environ $5,000 par mois de son ex-largement presume etre FY elevate operant recu entre $40,000 et $47,000 par mois de pension. Alimentaire jusqu'au CK 5 Saint Ale Injustice avec de proves que vate convaincu un jube de redoire le paiement. O tenny le moment lu plus choken de la journée, faquan un enregistrement audio cell fudjo sulman pour la jury vecta, ecateurs el enregistrement etate. Lié, UX new diotel de Didi Penenke, Eladio Jua Jane, Tamoyna, Jamie Sentais Kamunji, any sweepa on actrice for me CK, who attendas opere 24 hours performance non-stop Penenke CT audio Jua Didi. Kamenka a SSY less you avec de muchwires, IL acute el enregistrement, a koti de son avocat. Partisan de ecateurs lu fake K Didi plur, and a couldn't CT audio sugrate chuil ete particularment a cabin penike Didi lutate contra CS emotion Jane continuous son, temo ignage avec un revelation trouble L admit chua pray, check frick L envoy the messages, AUX escorts, poor less rash report trails, and as he sent pas simplement utilize. J valet chuil as he sente valorize. Expliquatil revelant on humanite attendu, occur the set sortie de machinations etate on. Detail que revenait constamment Dawn Sun Temo Ignite set tentative de Cesperie. The preserver unsemblant de Dignite. Humane Dawn de situation Deshimanis and Quan on Louis de Manisai. Elvalate. SE souvenir de Chak Newt de Hotel as a Repons Fut Decrin Cumji. Eliat de Jamerise. Pouvor less ublir C Kasuvaditate. Sai perturbing K meme less journalist Chevrones. Presents Dawn La Sal. De Tournerant Le Regard Jane Rakana Comment. El Planifiate on Frick of Avec Diddy. And 2023 Louis Envoyant. J. Trouvé and Guard pour l'enfant et toy two choices. Su entendu il devait choicer el score pour la soirée mais CS reglas etain arrives don unjust desesper absolute elevate envoy a Didi and photo de sun tampon and sanglant pour viter deloir a partis for el assistance red and sun suffle set image set prove visual de jusque and femme etate preet a aller pour chapper SCS seances resume tout el horror de la situation mais lu plus. Trouble-nitate encore, Air Jane, Revelique, Parfois meme pennant lures, Reglas Diddy less. 4K Quan meme a parts for the scenes, the crites come I and do sang for 2 malons a de El Wild, Poor BB, ET meme de El Urine Lindustry. Due to Vertus McVine to Decover, SES, Propers Hobbies, Le Jug, Aaron Sabromi and Lutate. Por maintenir el order don si chaos. Judiciaire, less objections fuse into touts parts, less debats etain asai intense trials avain, do retarder el audience duna lamatin. Mimaio why evade untension palpable k, less chimeras any captain pa unbodily carni. Entre la defense etl accusation sir chak detail chak prove chak, temo ignij meme la, procure maureen come se fit, recader par la ju quan el tenda de wire certain elements por adia la temo ignij de jane, lu system judiciaire, Louis meme semblé, Sir Lou point de cracker, Sous Lou poids a set affaire pousse vite le moment, Lou plus surrealist de tout set journée surrealist avant quitter la salle the audience. Jane de fit quelques chose caperson innovate, view vener elprit. Dawn es bras la procure maureen comme etl evocate de la defense tenny garagos, les deux femmes que vinaient de passive de jours à essa front affairissement, Ellen essa and a protégé Jane, el autre tentant de troir essa credibilite essi retrovan touts, les deux embraces par la meme femme, quan comme Louis demand of extupefaction, pourquoi eats vous ici? Lara pensa Jane, fut d'une simple site deconcertant jay te assign alors, J sweet venu discercis mos, el audience, fut levy les pro chains. Jurors les procure comme te appeller on agent federal E.T. Jonathan Perez, el ancien assistant to Diddy Jane of 8 term and son, Calver, a la bar, mais en question demurate Dawn two les esprits comment on femme bevedel embracer, a la fois ce que la defendant E.T. Ce que tentant la de truire, cette image de Jane Surrant Dawn as bras, lest du cams opposes resume put at you la complexite trouble to set fair, que continue to desher el Amérique, penique le soleil esi. Couchates are manna than less repercussions to said journey, continuing to se pro pager, a travers l'industry musical, less telephones and nay and dawn, less bureaus of direction, less abocas traveling tar dawn la nudity quel part shon. Important warning. What you're about to hear demands your full attention. The following account is a direct, unfiltered transcription of courtroom testimony from a federal trial of music mogul Diddy, reported by Inner City Press. As the judge called the next witness, an eerie silence cloaked the courtroom. Each breath felt suspended. All eyes turned toward the doors as a familiar figure entered. Usher Raymond, the Grammy-winning artist, not here to celebrate his chart-topping career or settle contractual disputes, but to unveil a truth he had buried for decades. No longer shielded by polished interviews or deflections, Usher stepped forward to testify about what really happened inside the shadowy empire of Diddy Homes. That truth has been eating me alive, he said. His story began when, at 14, his mother told him he'd be moving to New York to live with Diddy, full of dreams, ambition, and a debut album already released. His mother believed that living with Diddy would fast-track his career, but neither of them could foresee the disturbing world he was about to enter. I thought I was going to learn the secrets of fame, Usher stated, his voice tense. But I witnessed things no teenager ever should. Upon arriving at Diddy's Midtown penthouse, he found a space flooded with excess. Champagne at breakfast, half-dressed strangers, and unconscious celebrities scattered like props in what Diddy called initiation camp. Initially, Usher thought it was a marketing gimmick, until he realized it meant total indulgence. The mentorship quickly spiraled into something darker. Diddy wasn't teaching him music. He was conditioning him into silence, into complicity. This is how real men do it, Diddy told him. One night at 3 a.m., Usher awoke to masked individuals entering the apartment. Dim lights, flickering candles, soft music. It felt like a ritual. It wasn't just sex, he said. There was structure. There were cameras, lists, and no one was surprised. Ordered back to bed. He couldn't sleep. That moment, he claimed, forever changed how he saw Diddy. The next part of his testimony shifted to the silence. How no one, not his mother, not the label, not industry insiders, ever warned him. They all knew, he said. But Diddy's silent power controlled everything. If he didn't like you, your career stalled. If he did, your silence was part of the deal. Usher wasn't alone. Other young artists were lured in, promised fast fame, then gradually entangled in Diddy's inner world. Assistants, drivers, musicians. Everyone acted like it was normal. Then came the trip to the Caribbean when Usher was just 15. It was supposed to be a private retreat, he recalled. But there were no cameras, no press. And that's when I realized I wasn't there for music. Years later, he would understand the depth of that manipulation. After the trip, Diddy became increasingly controlling. always surrounding Usher with strangers, more parties, and more unspoken rules. If Usher pushed back, Diddy would remind him, "Don't bite the hand that feeds you. Remember who gave you this life." Locking eyes with Diddy in court, Usher concluded, "You didn't give me this life. You gave me nightmares." In perhaps the most shocking segment of his testimony, Usher described being handed a contract at age 16 with a confidentiality clause disguised as a standard NDA. "I didn't even understand half of it," he said. "My mom signed it. Label lawyers called it routine. But now, looking back, I know what it really was. A contract to bury the truth. The signature he was pressured to give bought his silence for years, bound by a non-disclosure agreement. He wasn't allowed to speak about the parties, the guests, or the disturbing behaviors he had witnessed. This clause was later invoked in 2009, when he was preparing for a major interview and the questions turned personal. Before he could go through with it, Bad Boy Records' former legal team called with a chilling reminder. "We hope you're not planning to jeopardize your reputation." That interview never happened. But it wasn't just legal pressure. Her claimed he also received threats from people tied to Diddy's inner circle, some he hadn't heard from in years. "You think you've left that world, but it never really lets go of you," he said. "And if you step out of line, there are consequences, not just for your career, but for your safety." The courtroom froze when her lawyer presented a physical copy of the NDA. The judge accepted it as evidence, and included clauses about unauthorized audio and video reproduction, language that now took on a deeply sinister tone in light of the alleged secret video library Diddy kept. Her's voice cracked as he admitted, "This document made me feel crazy for years. Like everything I saw, everything I experienced wasn't real, because I wasn't allowed to say it out loud." Then he recounted a lesser-known incident from 1996, when he was only 17 and taken by Diddy to an exclusive party in a marble-floor Atlanta mansion, guarded by security and filled with models, celebrities, and mysterious men seemingly unrelated to the music business. Amidst the glitz, what stood out was a secret room. He recalled Diddy whispering to a security guard, who unlocked the door in the back of the house. There were masked people inside. That's all I'll say. I didn't know what I was looking at. Then, Her said something that shook the courtroom. "I think that night changed me. I saw things I still can't explain. I don't know if it was legal, but I know it wasn't right." He held up photocopied pages from a journal he had started in 1998, originally meant for songwriting, which over time became a vault of personal memories and hidden observations. When asked if he'd ever shown it to anyone, he simply shook his head. "I was too scared. I didn't think anyone would believe me." Asked why he was speaking now, he leaned into the microphone and said, "Because I've lived with it long enough. It's time the truth came out." Then he revealed an encounter he said he'd never shared, not even with his closest friends. In 1997, at 18, he was invited by Diddy to meet a powerful music investor in Miami who could fund his first world tour. "I thought it was about business," he said. Diddy told him to dress well and be respectful. But when he entered the suite, he found 3 men in robes, expensive champagne, and silent young women in the background. One man, claiming to be from overseas, asked if he wanted to be remembered forever. He wasn't talking about music, Her explained. Diddy then left him alone with the men. "I felt trapped. They didn't touch me. But one put a hand on my shoulder and said, 'You can stay or go, but you'll never get another invitation like this.'" Her left, and from that point forward, everything changed. He was abruptly pulled from a tour opportunity, and a high-profile producer walked away from working with him. No one said it was because I walked out of that room. But after that night, doors that had always been open began to close. He also testified that, a few weeks later, Diddy showed him a disturbing clip recorded on a handheld camera. "He laughed," Her recalled. "It was another young artist doing something I know he wouldn't have agreed to unless someone made him." When asked if Diddy ever directly threatened him, Her paused. He didn't have to. The people around him did. He didn't use words. They used silence and exile. That was the moment Her realized that in this world, fame wasn't about talent. It was about submission. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly. Cameras focused on Her's face as his voice grew personal. "This is the hardest part, because it's no longer just about me." He spoke about Justin Bieber. whom he mentored during the pop star's early days. At first, everything was positive. I wanted to be the big brother. I never had. But then Diddy stepped in. He started inviting Bieber to parties, calling them initiation camp, the same phrase he had used with her years earlier. He was just 15, but Diddy treated him like a grown man. One night in 2011, her received a call from Bieber. He didn't say anything at first. I just heard his breathing shakily. He had whispered, "I want to go home." That's what Justin Bieber said on the phone one night. According to her, Usher's team tried to locate him, but Bieber went dark for several days. When they finally met again, Bieber couldn't even look him in the eyes. "I'm fine now," he said, but her knew that wasn't true. That moment triggered her to confront Diddy directly, asking him the question he'd been holding in for years. "What you doing to these kids?" And Diddy's chilling response, "The same thing they did to me. That's how it works." That was the last real conversation her ever had with him. From then on, he distanced himself. He didn't want his name associated with what he now saw too clearly. But after watching what happened to Justin, silence was no longer an option. For the first time, her revealed that in 2018, he received a call from an unknown number and a voice warned, "Tell him to keep his mouth shut, or we'll shut it for him." When asked in court who he thought made the threat, her turned to the defense table and said, "I think you know." The breaking point came during a night no one had spoken of until now. A private party in a secluded Hollywood Hills estate in 2002. Her had been invited under the pretense of meeting a European producer, but there was no producer, no business setting, just dim lighting, security on every corner, an atmosphere heavy with secrecy. Phones were confiscated at the entrance, and guests were given intense NDAs, far more aggressive than any standard industry contract he had seen. Something felt off, he testified. There were people there who weren't artists or execs. They were just watchers. He recognized some famous faces, people who'd never publicly been linked to Diddy, and while he refused to name names, he hinted more would come forward if the trial continued. The most haunting part came when he tried to leave the party, and was stopped by a man he didn't know. He was taken into a side room where Diddy sat, and from there, everything changed. Her then shifted his testimony to business dealings, revealing internal emails and draft contracts that showed how, as a teenager, he signed a development deal locking him into 5 albums and giving away rights to his masters until age 35. "I didn't know what I was signing. I just wanted to sing." He described how other bad boy artists have been trapped in similar contracts, naming Carl Thomas, Black Rob, and the late Craig Mack. Diddy, he claimed, had a pattern. Lure young talent with promises of mentorship, then discard them once they stopped obeying. He recalled receiving a spreadsheet from a private accountant showing he had lost out on over $4.3 million in royalties. Court records reveal many artists had accepted quiet settlements. Some just regained the right to use their name or perform their own songs. One of the most shocking revelations was that her had once tried to organize a secret meeting with other artists in 2011, but the meeting never happened. Someone had tipped off Diddy. Even worse, her claimed he once saw Diddy order the destruction of demo tapes and footage belonging to an artist who had threatened to speak out. The courtroom fell still. When asked why he had never come forward sooner, her gave a haunting response. "I thought if I stayed quiet, I could move on and just be grateful. But you can't be grateful for a lie." He spoke of the guilt that had eaten at him for years, watching other young artists fall into the same traps, admitting that for a long time, he didn't know how to help them without destroying his own life. "It's always about leverage," he said. And Diddy had all of it. The courtroom was struck silent once again when I read from a journal entry he had written the night he left Diddy's mentorship for good. "I survived Puff Daddy, but did the child in me survive? I still don't know." As he ended his testimony, he addressed not just a judge, but the victims watching online, and the next generation of young artists idolizing the man on trial. "This isn't just about one man," he said. "It's about an entire system that told kids like me to shut up, fall in line, and never question the hand that feeds us. But I'm here now, and I'm not afraid anymore. Not for me, because I already lived through it. I'm doing this to the ones who didn't." And at that moment, what had begun as a federal trial for racketeering and trafficking transformed into something far bigger, a reckoning with decades of silence in the music industry.